In this video, we're going to again look at tailoring CDS. And the scenario we're going to take this time is tailoring one of the matching services so that an alpha phone number, the kind of phone number that you see advertised, 182 Best Buy, for example, can be matched with its numeric equivalent. So you can see the phone pad on the photo here. So things like 182 Best Buy should match with its numeric equivalent, which is 182.237.8289. So we'll look at how we can tailor a match service to achieve that. Let's start by looking at the behavior of matching out of the box then. So I'm going to use real-time entity matching as my example. And I'm in the web service tester. I've called the entity match service. And I've put in data for two entity records, record 1 at the top on the left here. So the data I've put in is name, Oracle Corporation, website www.oracle.com, and phone 182 Best Buy, so you've got an alpha phone number there. And to start with, in record 2, just a bit further down here, that we're going to try and match with, I've put exactly the same information. So again, name, Oracle Corporation, website www.oracle.com, and phone 182 Best Buy. So let's send that to the web service. There we go, and off to the entity match process, and you can see it's given us the result very quickly. Match score 89, so it's found a match. And look at the rule that it's matched against: full name exact, website, phone number. So if matching has two alpha phone numbers like 182 Best Buy or partially alpha, it's happy, it can still find the match if those phone numbers are the same. But if I just replace one of those phone numbers, let's replace the first one here with its numeric equivalent, so that would be 182.237.8289. So that is now in one of the phone numbers. I'll take off the space. I don't think it'll make any difference anyway, because I think it'll be got rid of. But let's hit send, and let's see what happens to this match score and the rule that we match against. So let's do that now. And you can see the match score is reduced to 85, and the rule has changed, and it's now matching just on the name and the website, but not on the phone number. So what we want to do is to adapt matching so that if we have a numeric and an alpha phone number, and in fact they're equivalent, if you converted the alpha phone number into its numeric equivalent, they'd be the same, then we want to still find the match on the phone number and still get that match score of, in this case, 89, rather than going down to 85 and hitting a rule that doesn't include the phone number. So that's our challenge, and next we'll look at how we're going to do it. So what we want to do is we want to match an alpha or semi-alpha phone number like 182 Best Buy to its numeric equivalent. And if you think about that, what it really means is that we need to convert an alpha phone number like 182 Best Buy to its numeric equivalent in order to be able to do the comparison. We need to be able to compare apples with apples, not apples with pears or whatever. So how are we going to do that conversion of an alpha phone number or a semi-alpha phone number to its numeric equivalent? Well, I'm going to suggest we use this processor, which is in the transformation family, called character replace. Let's just drag it on. I've got a little process here which is reading from a web service called tester, and that web service has a single input called phone number, and it writes out to the same web service. And we can use that just to see how character replace is going to work. We'll think about how we plug this into matching in a little while, but let's just get an idea for how a character replace works. So if I link up the character replace processor to the reader and give it the phone number field and look at the options. Now, the character replace processor, like a lot of processors, uses reference data, and it actually uses a set of reference data that comes with the EDQ release called standardized accented characters. And that's what character replace is usually used to do, to standardize accented characters, often before matching. So we take, for example, an A with an accent over the top and standardize it to a regular A, because that way we're going to get more matches. Let's have a quick look at the reference data then, and you can see this is it. So it's working with some character codes on the left here, and it's standardizing them to standard characters. So if we just take a quick look, let's take this one as an example, code 198. Now, if you go and have a look on the web, you can pretty soon get lists of these codes up. So code 198 here, what is that? That is this character, AE, I think it's called ligature. All right. So in the standard reference data, if matching finds this AE ligature, if the character replace processor finds AE ligature, it will standardize it, and it will standardize it to a regular E. Okay, so it takes that AE character 198, standardizes it to regular E, and that's what all of these do. And you can actually put in, as you see here, ranges of character references. So 192 to 197 gets standardized to regular A. And if we go back to our table, 192 is there, look, 197 is here, and everything in between that relates to different forms of non-standard, if you like, A's, and they all get standardized to a regular A by the reference data here. So we can apply this same principle to take regular letters and to standardize them to numbers, which is what we want to do. And if we go up to the top of this list, or near the top anyway, you can see here are some of the regular letters, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. And these are the codes we want. Okay, so what we need to do then is to create our own set of reference data and point the character replace processor at that set that we create. Now, I've done this already, so let me show you. I'm just going to point at my reference data now that I've created. I've kept it within the CDS project, and I've given it a prefix tailored. There it is, tailored standardized alpha phone numbers. Let's select it, and we'll have a quick look at it by clicking here. And this is what it's doing. So if I just bring over the web page again, we can compare. Look, so the first line of reference data, characters between 65 and 67, number 65 and 67. So that's these three, which are A, B and C, get standardized to the letter 2. And if you look at your phone pad, you'll see that letter 2, or number 2, sorry, is equivalent to the letters A, B, C. All right, and 68 to 70, and those are characters, let's find them here, whoops, D, E and F, get standardized to the number 3. And again, look at your phone pad and you see they're equivalent. And that's what I've done here. So this one standardizes GH and I to 4, this one JK and L to 5, etc. I've only dealt with uppercase, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So I haven't done anything with lowercase yet. So I've now pointed the character replace processor at that reference data. So it should hopefully standardize our numeric characters to their equivalent numbers on the phone pad. So let's just hook that up to the writer, and I had it hooked up before, so it's already outputting the phone number to a field called standardized phone number. And we'll just run that. Remember, it's associated with a web service, so we can run it in real time. And we can go into the web service tester here, and let's do a test. So in my input field on the left, I've put in 182 Best Buy. And if we hit send, let's see what it gets standardized to. That will appear on the right. So we'll send it now, and there you go. It's getting standardized to 182, 237, 8289, which is what it should be standardized to. And again, look at your phone's numeric keypad, and you should be able to work out that that's what 182 Best Buy should be standardized to. So that's a way that we can standardize our alpha characters to numeric characters. And by the way, if I put on the end here, you can probably notice anyway, I've got some numeric characters on the beginning, but if I put in some more anywhere within here, they're left alone. Just send that, and you can see here the numeric characters on the end there that I put in 234 234 are still on the end. It's just standardized and changed the alpha characters. Okay, so that's the principle we're going to use. and we're going to use character replace, and in a moment I'll show you how we can hook this in to the matching process. So we've figured out how we want to standardize our alpha phone numbers to numeric characters. And the question was, well, where do we plug that in to our entity matching? Well, let's do what we usually do, and let's start by looking at the jobs. So if we go to the jobs node within CDS, and let's find real-time entity match there, and we'll just open that on the process canvas, on the canvas. And we'll have a quick look through this job. And what I'd like to do really is to start with the matching process. So, you know, all of the symbols with the 3 yellow balls here, these are all processes. And here's the actual match process itself, match entity. So let's start there. That seems like a good place to start. So we'll open that process up. And we'll try and work backwards from what matching is doing. So here is the match processor itself, match entities. And we'll open that. And let's go to the match rules. And if I just go to the match rules tab, you may remember that when we, right at the beginning of this video, when we used the web service tester to send 2 entities to entity match, the rule that was fired against was E020F, I think it was, and it was name, website and phone number. So the rules are here, and they're divided into groups. These are the groups at the top, so you can see there's quite a few groups there, and the groups all have reference codes. This one is E020, full name exact, and here are the rules within that group. And if we just go down, then you can see here is E020F. That was the rule that our 2 entities matched against. Remember, match score 89 there, full name exact, website, phone number. So that's the rule that we matched against. So let's start from that rule. That's quite a good place to start, I guess. And here are the comparisons on the right hand side. And let's see which ones are actually used by this rule. Let's just go down the list of comparisons. Well, there is full name exact. That has to be true. That comparison is used. There near the bottom is the website. That's word match count. That has to have at least 1 word in common. But here's the one we're really interested in. Phone number WMC, value 1+. And again, WMC, well, I'll tell you in a minute what that stands for. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So phone number WMC, that's the comparison that is key here, because obviously it's the one about the phone numbers. Let's go to the comparisons tab. Let's try and find that comparison. So what we see here is the comparisons grouped by identifiers, and if we move down, we'll be able to see the phone number identifiers, and there are actually 3 of them. So we've got one here called phone number, another one called phone numbers with an S on the end, and one called phone number last N. And if you look at the comparison names, this is the one that we've just seen, phone number WMC, and it has code C54. Okay. And WMC, if we look at the comparison type, it's pretty clear. It stands for word match count. Now that might seem a little bit strange at first, because phone numbers we don't tend to think of as words, but actually in this field, as we'll discover in a minute, we can have multiple phone numbers. Because it's a string, each different phone number is treated as a word. So we could have a phone and an alternate phone, for example, and one of those must match. That's what that's saying. One of the words, one of the phone numbers must be in common, must match. That's what this does. And there you can see the results band of 1+, 1 at least, 1 or more must match. So that comparison is the one that's in our rule. Now anyway, we have these 3 identifiers for phone numbers. You can see them here: phone number, phone numbers with an S, and phone number last N. Okay, let's try and trace that back. Let's cancel out of the match tab, but staying in the matching processor, let's go to the identify subprocessor, and that's where the identifiers are mapped to fields or attributes, if you like, from the incoming records. So if we move down, let's try and find those phone number identifiers, the 3 that we've just seen, and you can see them here. Phone number, phone numbers with an S, and phone numbers last n. And we can see the fields they're mapped to in the incoming data. There's two streams, but all the field names are the same. They're using the same data interface. Phone standardized, so that's mapping to phone number. Phone numbers is mapping to the phone numbers identifier. And finally, phone number last n here is mapping to the phone numbers last n identifier. Okay, so these are the three attributes we're really interested in the data. Phone number standardized, phone numbers with an S on the end, and phone numbers last n. Okay, let's bear that in mind then. Those are the three attributes from the data interface that we really want to find out how they prepared. So, having worked that out, let's go back. We'll close down the match process for now. Let's go back to the job, the real-time entity match job, and let's take a quick tour through the various different processes. We'll work our way backwards. So before match entity, we've got match prepare real-time. Before that, we've got cluster real-time, and then working up, we've got something called standardize entity and something called standardize address, and at the top there, input prepare entity. Now, you'd guess that probably the phone numbers will be standardized and prepared in this process called standardize entity. They're not part of the address, so that it won't happen there. So let's continue our investigations in this standardize entity process. So let's right click it and let's open that process. So here we go. So data's coming in. There's the data preparation interface. Let's just quickly look at that. It's got a lot of fields that it's inputting, but amongst those fields that are being input, if we move down, we can see, I hope, just bear with me, I think I may have gone a little bit too far there. Okay, we can see the phone there, okay, and an alternate phone here. All right. Now, let's have a look at the process then. Those fields, phone and alternate phone, are coming into this process. And they're going through this standardized entity names. That's dealing with names, so we won't worry about that. But you can see pretty soon we get to this processor called standardized entity phone numbers. Okay, so by the name of it, you guess that's going to be pretty key for us. So let's open that processor. It's a composite publish processor, so we can open it and look what's inside. And this is what's inside. Okay. Now, it's fairly complex stuff, some of this. Doing some interesting things with the phone numbers. And so if we look at this, this is also a composite processor, standardized phone number array. Within the composite processor, we can open that as well. And there's some more things happening here. And there's some regex going on. Don't know how good your regex is, but there's some of that happening. So quite a lot of stuff happening here. Fairly complex. Now, we could spend a long time walking through exactly how this standardized entity, or standardized phone number rather, processor works and what it does. But let's not do that. Instead of that, what I've done is I've taken a copy of that standardized entity phone numbers processor, and I've put it, I'll show you down here, in a different project. Here's my copy in a process that I've called tester. So that's a copy of that processor we've just seen, etc. And I've just hooked it up with a reader on one end and a writer on the other. And that reader and writer are reading from and writing to a web service. And in the web service, we're supplying the phone number and the alternate phone. If we look at this processor, let's open it. You can see it's adding phone number.standardized, alternate phone number.standardized, phone numbers.standardized, and phone number last n. Okay. Now those are important because they will feed into the attributes that will ultimately become our three identifiers. So three of these will be the identifiers that are used in the match process. So this is pretty key. So as I said, I've hooked this up to a little web service called Tester. I'm going to run it, and let's let that get started. And then we'll go to the web service tester. And in the web service tester, I've called that tester service, so I can now run through some data against that standardized entity phone number processor and see what happens to that data. So over on the left here, here's the input. In the phone number, I've put in 182 Best Buy, and in the alternate phone, I've just put in a kind of random phone number there, 202-567-7643. So let's hit send, and we should see the outputs here on the right. And there are the outputs. Now, what I want you to note is this. If you look at the alternate phone first, 202-567-7643, with dashes between the three groups of numeric characters. Here, alternate phone standardized, here is the standardized version of that, and all it's done is just taken out the dashes. So that's fine. But if we look at the main phone number, 182 Best Buy, what's happened there? Well, here's the standardized form of it, 182. So what it does, this processor, amongst other things, if there are any alpha characters in our phone number, it actually removes them. And in fact, if I put in some more numeric characters after the alpha characters, so I've put in 7654, we'll hit send. You see the result? Again, it removes anything after the alpha characters. Now this is a problem for us, isn't it? Because obviously what we want to do is we want to use those alpha characters, and we want to convert them into the appropriate numeric characters using that character replace processor. But actually what's happening in this standardized entity phone numbers process is we're losing all of those alpha characters and anything after them, effectively. Okay, that's what's going on there. So we have a bit of an issue, and we have to decide how we're going to avoid that issue or get around it. Okay, let's just stop that little process working. That's kind of done its job. We've done a bit of investigation there. We don't need to wait for that to stop. We'll let that happen in its own time. But if we just go back again and we take a look at our real-time entity match job. So what we know is if we pick up the standardized versions of the phone number coming out of this standardized entity process, well, that will have lost the alpha characters. Okay, so if you start thinking around this, we've either got to do something to change this process so it works in a different way. Now, I think that could be a little bit fraught with potential problems. So what other options do we have? Well, I'm not saying that I'm choosing the right option, but the option I'm going to choose actually is to work with the original phone number. Just going back to the web service tester, note that we can output the original phone. You can see it here at the bottom. Okay, and that will be output. So rather than matching against our prepared version of the phone number, one option is to work with the original phone. And I happen to have called the output here original phone, but in the data interface it's just called phone, which is the name of the attribute that we input into this web service, this tester here, and you know, so it's just called phone. It's not called original phone. That happens to be why I've called it, to make it clear that that's what it is in this little web service I've created. So let's take that option. Let's work with the original phone number. Now, what we can do then is adapt our match processor in this match entity process, and we can adapt it so that it uses the original phone number instead of, or as well as, the standardized version of the phone number. Okay, so that's an option, and that's the option we're going to follow. Now, let's think through some of the possible consequences of that. If we just go into this match entity process and we change it, then potentially what we've done may not be very obvious or visible to any observer who comes to this further down the line. if we're dealing with an upgrade, it might be difficult to see what we've changed. So perhaps what we could do is instead of that, let's find that match entity process in the processes node. There it is, and let's take a copy of it. So we'll right click and we'll choose copy, and let's just paste that copy into the processes node, and we'll change the name, and again we'll call it tailored, if I can spell it, tailored match entity. So instead of changing the original process, let's take a copy and let's change that copy. So there we go. Now let's find that copy, tailored match entity. There it is. So we've got a copy we're changing. The original process, by the way, is used in the batch entity matching as well as real time. So again, any changes we made would affect both things. So you need to be aware of that too. You might want to do that, you might not, but you need to be aware of it. Here's our copy anyway, and there is the match processor. Now take a look at the readers. These readers are both reading from the combined data preparation data interface. Okay, and one of the fields that they're sending to the match processor is the original phone, and that's just in a field which is called phone. There it is. Whoops, there. Okay, but going into the match processor, and we'll look at identify first. If you look down the list of identifiers and the fields in the data interface that they relate to, you won't find phone there. Okay, you'll find the standardized versions of phone which are output by that entity phone standardization processor that we looked at, but you won't find the original phone number just called phone. So therefore we need to create a new identifier so that we can use the original phone number in our matching processor. So let's do that now. Let's just click plus, and we'll call this identifier original phone. There we go. And we'll map it in the incoming records to the phone number field. So let's just find that phone number field. I think I've probably gone too far down there. Okay, no, these are alphabetic, aren't they? Sorry. So in fact I hadn't gone far enough. And there it is. Okay, and we'll do the same thing for the reference data here. Remember, there's two streams of data coming in, so we need to map them both. There we are. So there's our new identifier called original phone, mapping to the phone number field from the data interface, which holds the original phone number before it was standardized in any way. Great. Let's go to the matching, or the match subprocessor now, and let's create a comparison on that original phone number. Now you're probably thinking, well, okay, you're creating a comparison, but we said that we wanted to convert the original phone number so that any alpha characters are converted to their numeric equivalents. So why are you creating a comparison already? Well, let me show you. There's the original phone identifier we created. Let's add a comparison for it, and we'll call this original phone exact. Now we'll just do, to keep it simple for the purposes of this demonstration, we'll just do an exact string match. Okay, so the two versions of the phone number have to be exactly the same. Now what we want to do is we want to transform the original phone number so that alpha characters are converted to numeric characters. And actually within matching we can add a transformation. So we don't necessarily have to do these transformations before matching. We could do, okay, but we can actually just do it in matching. So to keep it simple, let's do that. Let's add a transformation. In fact, the first one we'll do is not character replace. Let's do an uppercase first of all. All right, you might remember in our reference data for character replace we just had uppercase reference data. I didn't map the lowercase characters, so if there are lowercase characters they will be converted to uppercase, so that won't matter. And let's do another transformation after the uppercase, which will be our character replace. Now remember, character replace, that's the tool we're going to use to convert from alpha to numeric. There we go. Now, just like the character replace processor, character replace within the match processor by default uses the standardized accented characters reference data. And of course, we know we want to point to our tailored reference data. Let's find it. There it is, tailored standardized alpha phone numbers instead. So we picked that tailored standardized alpha phone numbers reference data that you saw earlier. Okay, so there's our comparison, original phone, exact, and two transformations are happening before we try and do that comparison. We're uppercasing if there are any lowercase letters in there, and then we're doing a character replace to convert those letters to the appropriate numbers as you would see on the phone's keypad. So that's our comparison. Now let's go to our match rules tab, and now let's again look for the rule that we matched on when we first did our web service test on entity matching right at the beginning. And remember, it was in this E020 full name exact group, and it was E020F, there it is, full name exact website phone number. Now, we said before that uses three comparisons: the full name exact, we still want that; website, we still want that. Now, the phone number WNC word match count, that uses one of the standardized versions of the phone number. Remember, the alpha characters are dropped, so we don't want to use that one anymore. Let's change that, and instead we want to use our new original phone exact comparison at the bottom here, and that needs to be true. Okay. Now, just to make it really clear what we've done, let's change the name of this rule to tailored. Oops. E20F. Now, we could have created a new rule and put it just below the original one if we wanted to keep the original logic as well as adding the new logic. That would be another thing we could do. But we've got a new rule in here with a name which is indicating that it's tailored. That's probably a good idea to keep that. And it's looking at our original phone number. Let's OK that. So we kind of hope that that will have done the job. Let's just go back to our tailored version of the process, and let's just do something which is a good idea, I think, which is let's add a canvas note. And in this canvas note, we'll say something like tailored, oops, there we go, tailored match rules to compare original phone numbers that have had alpha characters converted to numerics. There we go. So we've made a little note about what we've done as well. So that's making it really clear for anyone who looks at this. Let's save that. So we've got a tailored version of the match entity process. That's great. But the job still looks at the standard non-tailored version of that process, right? So what are we going to do there? Well, again, we've got several options. We could just go into the real-time entity match job, and we could change that, or we could do something similar to what we did with the process, which is we could take a copy of it and paste it in and create our own tailored version of that job. So we're not changing the original job, but we're going to create a new job entirely, well, a copy of the job anyway, and we're going to change that. So here is our tailored version of real-time entity match. Let's open it, and in that tailored version we will take out the match entity process. That's the standard process, that's no good to us, so let's delete it. And over here on the tool palette we should see our tailored version of that process. There it is, tailored match entity. Let's drop that into the job. There we go, and we'll just hook that up. So whoopsie, bring that down a bit, and we just hook it up so it's joined to the process immediately before it, and it's writing to the process, oops, after it. There we are. Alright, so we've now got a tailored version of match entity, RealTime. Let's just save that. And it's using our Tailor process. Now the way that we start the real-time processes is we run a job called RealTime Start All here. And let's just open that job, and it does some preparation, and then in this phase it initiates all the real-time services. And if we just hit configure, these are all triggers actually, and each trigger runs another job. So here is the trigger that runs real-time entity match, for example. Okay, now what I've done is I've created my own little version of that at the bottom here, and I'll show you that version. And in my own version, I'll just close the other two. In my own version, there are the triggers, okay, and I've just set it just to start real-time entity match, not any of the other jobs, just to make it easy to test. Obviously, you wouldn't use this in reality. Again, you might want your own tailored version of real-time start all, or you can just amend the one that's there so that it's starting off your tailored job, not the standard real-time entity match job. Anyway, there's my version. So we want to obviously try this all out, make sure it works. So we'll go to the service, the server console, and we'll go into CDS, and let's find that little version of real-time start that I created there, and we'll run it. And what that should do is it should do the preparation that's required, and then once it's done that, it should start real-time entity match, and it'll take a couple of minutes to get everything started. So when it's started, I'll come back to you, and we'll do a little test in the web service tester, and we'll see whether our entity matching is working in the way that we want to with the alpha phone numbers. Okay, well, welcome back. As you can see, entity matching is now running, our tailored real-time entity match process that we created earlier. So let's go into the web service tester, and I've already called the entity match service. Here it is, and I've put some data in, and I've put almost exactly the same data in that we used for the initial test at the beginning of the video. So in record 1 here, I've got name, entity name, Oracle Corporation, phone 182 Best Buy, website www.oracle.com. And in record 2, there it is, I've got the same name, Oracle Corporation. I've got the same website, www.oracle.com. But this time I've got the numeric equivalent of 182 Best Buy in the phone number. So that is 182.237.8289. And what we hope is that these two records will now be a match on our tailored rule that we created to look at the entity name, website, and the phone number with the alpha characters that we see up here converted to their numeric equivalent. So we should get a match with the numeric phone number below, just there. Okay, let's go to the top then, and let's hit send, and let's see what happens. So I'll hit send now, and there is our result. It's a match score 89, and we've matched against our tailored rule that we created, our tailored version of E020F, full name exact, website, phone number. So that shows that the change that we made to transform the original phone number within the matching process so that the alpha characters are transformed into their numeric equivalents using character replace, that has worked. So that's really good. So that's good news. Now, I'm not going to do all of the refinement that you might want to do against this particular issue. For example, what would happen if I put a dash in between 182 and Best Buy? Well, actually, you'd need to think that one through, and you need to do something probably to remove that dash, because I think if I just hit send now, you'll probably find that we won't get the same rule. No, we've got a different rule now, which doesn't include the phone number. So we want to do some preparation or transformation in matching of the phone number to get rid of that dash. Again, probably in the comparison, we could add a denoise transformation that would probably get rid of that dash for us, and that would probably overcome that problem. So you need to think through some issues like that. The other thing I'd like to point you at, if we just go back and let's open a copy of our tailored process. Let's just find that. Okay, so there we go, there's our tailored match entity process. It's running, so it's going to tell us that it's locked. It doesn't matter, we only want to look at it anyway. But if we just take a look at the match rules, I'm not sure if I can do that whilst it's locked. Let's tell you what I'll do instead. I'll just go into the non-tailored version of match entity, because I can make the same point equally well there. Let's look at the match rules. So obviously this is not the tailored version, this is the standard version, so we're not going to see our new match rule. But you know, all we did, we went to one of the match groups, E020F, and we put a new rule in, or we changed a rule, and the rule we changed was this one, wasn't it, E20F, so that it looks at the original phone, not the standardized version of the phone. But even within this group, there's another rule there that looks at the phone. And I think if we go further down, we may see, perhaps, I won't go looking for it, oh yeah, just there, another one that looks at the phone as well. So even within this group, we haven't taken care of all of the rules which look at the phone, which include the phone number. The other rules, even in our standardized version of the processor, they will still look at the standardized version of the phone number, which won't include the alpha characters, and therefore won't hit the mark as far as we're concerned. So we'd have to go through and we'd have to change all of the relevant rules in this match group, and then we'd have to do the same thing in all of the other match groups, because all of the other match groups, there's the next match group down, they all have rules which look at the phone as well. They probably all have similar rules, similar to the three that we saw within our first group. But there's a number of groups, okay, there's quite a lot of them. So we now have some time really just going through and changing all of those rules. Or, as I said, the other thing we could do is just add new rules, leave the original rules there and add a new one, perhaps right below the original rule or right above it, to look at the phone number with the original phone number with the alpha characters changed to numerics. So we've kind of done a little proof of concept, if you like, about how we would take care of this requirement to match phone numbers including alpha characters to their numeric equivalents. You can see how we would do it. There'd be more work to do to actually finesse this and make it work in a production environment, but hopefully you can get an idea of how we could do it, and more importantly perhaps of how we'd investigate the match process and the match jobs in order to work out what we need to change.